제발 나 좀 살자. 나 좀 살자.
The wife was confirmed dead, but her husband was horrified to discover her corpse's eyelids trembling eerily. This should have been a sign of revival, yet, shaking with fear, he chose to conceal the truth from the coroner. After making excuses to send them away, he tightly bound his wife's corpse with hemp rope and stuffed her mouth with raw glutinous rice. Under his conscienceless actions, his wife died with eternal resentment. But the man, having done this, did not stop. Driven by inner fear, he shockingly locked his daughter, who bore a striking resemblance to his wife, in the morgue. He never imagined this would cost him dearly. The story takes place in Seoul, 2013. Horror cartoonist Toon, to highlight his uniqueness, always signs his completed works with his blood. But that day, after staying up late as usual to send his draft to the editor, something eerie happened. The editor stepped away to brew coffee, and the computer mysteriously opened the comic file. Even more terrifying, the comic's protagonist had become the editor himself. With doubt and unease, the editor slowly clicked on the first chapter. In 1987, a woman was disfigured in an accident, half her face severely rotted. When she appeared at her daughter's graduation, parents instantly cast mocking glances, deliberately avoiding her, hurling insults, and even calling her a monster. This led to her daughter enduring endless ridicule at school, later facing brutal bullying. The girl blamed her mother, wishing she'd vanish immediately. But she never expected her mother would see the humiliating photos and messages. Under the fatal blow, the mother chose to hang herself. Though the girl saw and tried to stop her, the moment she saw her mother's ghastly face, her classmates' taunts exploded in her mind, and her body involuntarily let go, choosing to watch her mother die. Stunned, the editor immediately called Yoon, but only heard a voicemail prompt. Before the editor could vent his full anger, the room's lights and curtains suddenly shut off. In panic, he grabbed a fruit knife, but terrifyingly, the comic on the computer was syncing his movements. Unable to stay, the editor desperately ran toward the door, but as expected, no matter how he called for help, no one responded. Realizing he was completely trapped, he mustered courage to turn back, determined to catch the prankster. But just when he thought it was safe, a bone-chilling scream came from behind. As the comic autoplayed again, the editor's life was forever frozen there. Police soon arrived, baffled by the case. The editor's death was estimated at 1 a.m., but entry logs and surveillance showed no one entered or exited the office before colleagues found the body. The murder weapon bore only the editor's fingerprints. With no leads, Detective J, in charge, planned to have his assistant, Junho, close it as a suicide. But as he prepared to leave, a colleague urged checking the computer, where the comic protagonist's death matched the editor's exactly. Sensing something amiss, Jay consulted the coroner, who, while confirming suicide, couldn't fathom why the editor mutilated himself first. To gather more information, Jay went straight to Yoon's home. Learning the editor died by suicide and his last call was to him, Yoon was momentarily incredulous. When Jay suspected a copycat killer, Yoon firmly denied it, insisting the original draft was seen only by him and the editor. He explained that, exhausted, he turned off his phone and slept, missing the voicemail. With no useful information, Jay took Junho back to the station. As soon as they left, Yoon checked the editor's voicemail, learning the comic had come to life, and dropped his phone in terror. The bizarre case stirred Yoon's recent horrifying experiences, as he'd been having sudden nightmares for unknown reasons. Besides dreaming of the editor, he once dreamt of meeting a girl asking for help on his way home one night, only for her to vanish after a few words. In fear, Yoon stopped his car, but as he scanned his surroundings, he vaguely sensed someone behind him. Waking up, Yoon realized he was at that intersection that night, but oddly his ring was gone, leaving only a prominent scar. Yet, from its healed state, the scar clearly predated that night, though Yoon had no memory of it. As his dreams grew more vivid, he sought a psychologist. Based on his work, the doctor diagnosed Alice in Wonderland syndrome, a condition causing hallucinations that blur fiction and reality, affecting cognition. The doctor believed Yoon's overwork made the symptoms feel real. Planning to rest as advised, Yoon was interrupted by the editor's death. Learning the comic had become reality, a chill ran down his spine, and he opened his computer to view the second chapter. The scene shifted from comic to reality. In a hospital morgue, mortician Old Kong prepared to dress a corpse, but strangely, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't move its legs. Irritated, Old Kong took a swig of liquor to relax, but in that instant, the corpse turned to face him. Thinking it was his tired eyes, Old Kong ignored it, but his tablet suddenly unlocked and auto-scrolled the comic's contents. When the protagonist became Old Kong, his past was revealed. 5 years ago, his chronically ill wife passed away one night, but far from grieving, Old Kong felt relieved. He was finally free. Years of ordeal had exhausted all his patience. But to his horror, when the undertaker prepared her body, he saw her eyelids twitching. To avoid reliving that life, he ruthlessly chose to end her, leading to the opening scene. Realizing the comic mirrored reality, Old Kong couldn't stay, but before he could calm himself, the morgue door inexplicably locked. Then, a freezer door suddenly popped open. As if controlled, Old Kong walked toward it involuntarily. The cabinet was pitch black, so he struck a match to check, but the next second, awakening, Old Kong found himself in the freezer, and before he could call for help, a corpse appeared, binding him tightly with straps, just as he had killed his wife. Meanwhile, sensing danger, Yoon rushed to the morgue to prevent the comic from coming true again. At the same time, analyzing the case, Jay saw a news report through his car window, realizing it matched the comic's plot, and sped to the morgue. Luckily, Yoon arrived first, opening the freezer just as Old Kong was about to suffocate. Though saved, Old Kong was gripped by severe hallucinations, claiming something sinister was hunting him. Under Yoon's stunned gaze, Old Kang's body gradually lost control and suddenly twisted his neck before him. Seconds later, arriving police arrested the inexplicable Yoon for murder. If the editor's case gave Yoon a perfect alibi, the Old Kong case, despite no fingerprints, made him the prime suspect. Seeing Jay wouldn't relent, to clear his name, Yoon revealed a shocking truth: his comics were plagiarized. Last year, his debut work was a massive success, making him a top-signed cartoonist overnight. But soon, he completely lost inspiration, unable to complete company tasks for a long time. Facing constant pressure from the editor, Yoon fell into anxiety. But just as he planned to confess to the company, he received an anonymous email. To his shock, it contained unpublished comic drafts, and even more astonishing, the plots perfectly matched his vision. Not knowing the sender, driven by intense desire, Yoon went against his conscience, colored the drafts, and claimed them as his own. As expected, the new work exploded in popularity. Thus, Yoon insisted he couldn't be the killer, nor would he mimic the comics to murder. To verify his claim, police compared the drafts, confirming his words. Now, finding the sender would reveal everything. By tracing the email's network address, Junho quickly pinpointed a neighborhood. Villagers, learning his purpose, showed disgust. Hyun, the person they sought, once lived in an abandoned apartment there. Her peculiar ability to predict deaths through drawings led to her being shunned by residents. Only cartoonist Yoon treated her normally. But good times were short. One day, a fire broke out in the apartment. Given Hyun's frequent bullying, outsiders speculated it might be her revenge. Afterward, survivors gradually moved away, and Hyun was listed as missing. Though her whereabouts were unknown, Junho learned her father was Old Kong. To uncover the truth, Jae took Yoon to the neighborhood. Seeing familiar surroundings, Yoon recalled past events. 5 years ago, as he prepared to debut, he was crushed by reality, facing repeated rejections and humiliation, nearly abandoning his cartoonist dream. One day he saw Hyun being bullied by thugs. Perhaps out of shared misfortune, Yoon stepped in, driving them off. Seeing her pitiful state, he took her in. Their meeting seemed fated, bringing hope to both, but they didn't expect this peace to shatter soon. Hyun also drew, and her works could come true. When her drawings predicted reality, a dead girl's family confronted her, believing it was her curse and demanding she join their daughter in death.
전형 그림처럼 애새끼가 트럭에 깔려 뒤졌다고. 귀신 시인년이라고 저게!
Fortunately, Yoon's knife threat averted tragedy. But unexpectedly, that night, his house mysteriously caught fire, and with no sign of Hyun, he didn't know who set it. After hearing Yoon's story, Jae was certain the neighborhood held key clues. Sure enough, they soon found a network cable leading to a basement, shockingly Yoon's studio. Seeing an out-of-place desk, Jae instinctively pressed the spacebar. The desktop wallpaper was a comic draft. This gave Jae a breakthrough. He had strong reason to believe the mastermind behind the two murders was likely the long-missing Hyun. Finding her would unveil all answers. But as they prepared to return, Yoon received a text from Hyun, asking to meet alone in the neighborhood's backyard. Seizing Jae's distraction, Yoon swiftly stole his car to go. But at the location, Hyun was nowhere to be found. While searching, he was horrified to find himself kidnapped by Junho.
이것도 조도현이랑 같이 그린 거 아니에요?
Earlier, Junho had seen the comic's third chapter, and to his dread, he was the protagonist. Years ago, on a highway, learning he'd passed the police exam, Junho excitedly called his wife, but while distracted, he hit a young girl. Intending to help, he hesitated when his wife revealed her pregnancy. Junho chose to ignore the girl, leaving her to die on the road. Thinking the secret buried, he was stunned when Yoon's comic threatened to expose it, so he decided to destroy all evidence and eliminate witnesses. But facing Junho's hysterical interrogation, Yoon genuinely didn't know Hyun's whereabouts. Seeing his defiance, Junho prepared to kill him. Luckily, at that critical moment, the greenhouse lights dimmed, and Junho's face twisted as if seeing something foul. Though he fired wildly, no one else was there. Moments later, Jae tracked him down, but before he could grasp the situation, Junho begged for help. His hands were moving uncontrollably, but it was too late. With Junho's death, the station fell into chaos. Not only was the killer's identity a mystery, but the chief outright rejected the absurd ghost theory. To avoid public pressure, he ordered Jae to align their story, claiming Junho's death was accidental to save their careers. Though struggling to accept, Jae complied. The chief then met Yoon, lying that it was an accident and urging him to keep the case confidential until the truth was found. But as Yoon prepared to destroy the drafts, his computer received a new email. Opening it, he found the 4th chapter, and the content froze his blood. The protagonist was himself, 5 years ago. The scene flashed back to when Yoon saved Hyun and began a new life with her. From her, he learned her death-predicting drawing stemmed from her mother's death from illness. Resembling her mother, her father, Old Kong, couldn't face her and locked her with her mother's corpse. In that dim room, for unknown reasons, vengeful spirits visited Hyun, recounting deaths and revealing future events. Terrified, she drew compulsively to warn the doomed. Learning of her explosive ability, Yoon comforted her while urging her to keep drawing, to reach his career peak. But when the work was set to be published, Hyun burned his room that night, refusing to let the comics go public, as spirits warned her of inevitable retribution. Blinded by greed, Yoon stopped her at all costs. Though he salvaged some drafts, Hyun still held him back, realizing she wouldn't compromise.
누가 죽든 말든 그게 무슨 상관이야. 우리가 죽이는 것도 아니잖아!
Yoon lost all reason and strangled her, later lying to the world he'd never seen her. Back in reality, Yoon reached the basement, picking up the lost ring, and regained his missing memories. Hyun's prophetic ability had transferred to him, requiring the ring and the basement for spirits to appear and share stories. Thus, Yoon shuttled between places, drawing drafts there and emailing them to his home computer. Facing his post-amnesia actions, Yoon, regaining some conscience, was filled with remorse. At that moment, Hyun's spirit appeared. Overwhelmed with guilt, Yoon bowed in apology, and from her expression, the kind Hyun seemed to forgive him. But as she vanished, Jae suddenly arrived. He'd just found Hyun died in the fire, and Yoon's published works all matched real deaths, giving him absolute reason to believe Yoon was the mastermind. Yet, facing arrest, Yoon refused to surrender. As Jae raised his gun, Yoon gestured to a wall painting. As the story unfolded, Jae's memories surged like a tide. Hearing sirens, Jae, to cover his own sins, wiped fingerprints with his clothes, staged Junho's death as suicide, and later blamed spirits. The sudden flood of memories overwhelmed him with guilt, yet he still refused to admit the truth. As the saying goes, karma spares no one. Finally, one day, horror cartoonist Yoon, facing a reporter's questions, denied the supernatural on camera, saying all abnormal phenomena stem from the human heart. If greed weren't so strong, the guilty wouldn't see illusions.